Good morning, my cookie crumbs, and welcome back. So this little idea came from and was inspired by, well, me. Yep, that's right. I'm projecting onto poor Izuku again. Oh dear. Here we go. If there was one thing Izuku hated, it was winter. While he did like Christmas time, and it was a great time of the year, he absolutely hated the cold. Just downright hated it. Now, it very rarely snowed, but when it did, it got super cold, and Izuku just didn't vibe with it. Izuku couldn't tolerate the cold. In fact, it physically hurt. So he would be gunning for a blanket every time the weather turned slightly bit cold. But I know what you're thinking. If Izuku couldn't tolerate the cold, why was he always wearing short sleeves or even shorts? Well, it's partially because Izuku couldn't regulate body temperature all that well. This was a problem he's had since he was a child. He would wear a sweater and a pair of shorts, all because it was just to help regulate his temperature. He wouldn't be too hot, but then he wouldn't be too cold. But he would still gun for a blanket. So now the weather had turned, and it was time for Izuku to be a heat-seeking missile. Currently, he was in his room with the door firmly shut, with flex tape no less, so that a draft couldn't get through. A lovely little space heater turned all the way up, and a blanket. While the dorm had a pretty good heating system, Izuku's tolerance for the cold was literally non-existent. Even though the dorm was a toasty 75 degrees for other people, he still couldn't tolerate it. Asue, or Tsu, understood. In fact, during the winter, she spent more time in his room than in hers. She was currently lying on the bed, snuggled into a bunch of blankets, while enjoying the space heater with him. There was a knock at the door, and Izuku went to answer it. It was Aizawa. He had been wondering where Tsu was, as people were trying to look for her but couldn't find her in her room. Izuku just shrugged and pointed to the mound of blankets, and Tsu poked her little head out. "People were looking for me, Ribbit?" "Yes, Tsu, they were. Your friends wanted to discuss your part of the project, or your partners did." "Oh, okay, Ribbit. Sorry, Ribbit. Izuku keeps his room nice and toasty hot. So I spent more time in here than in my own room, even though my own room is set to a pretty good temperature. Ribbit." "Is this to prevent you from hibernating?" "Mm-hmm. That's correct. Ribbit."
Do I need to make adjustments?"
"No, sir, Ribbit. Izuku and I are pretty content with this, Ribbit."
"Are you too sure?"
"We're sure. We like each other's company."
Alright, Tsu, you better go see what your partners need. And Izuku, why don't you and I go and see Recovery Girl about this temperature thing of yours?"
"Sir, I've been to the doctor about this before."
"Oh? And what did they say?"
"It's just simply intolerance. I can't tolerate the cold. Whether it's because I broke my bones one too many times and I have arthritis now, or it's simply because I just could never tolerate it to begin with."
"But you tend to overheat, especially at nighttime.
Because I can't regulate my body temperature. I didn't say I was immune to the heat. I can still get heat stroke and heat exhaustion. I can just tolerate the heat better than anything.
I see. But you can't tolerate the cold?
Mm-mm. Even a summer breeze sends me gunning for a blanket.
I see.
Yep. Anyways, was that all you needed, sir?
Yes, that's all I needed.
Izuku had wondered what Aizawa was planning, and just shrugged it off. Izuku had to go home for the weekend as his mother needed him, but when he got back, something was different about his dorm. He couldn't quite place his finger on it, but his heating... That's right, his little space heater. It was missing. His heating... It was better. At least in his room it was.
We decided that over break, or while you were gone, we installed thermostats. I talked to Nezu about your little problem. And it turns out more students also have quirks that can't...
Aizawa, I think you mean to say that there are some students with quirks that are temperature-based, yeah? And if they're not temperature-based, then, well, they have quirks that either make them intolerant to heat or intolerant to cold. And because of that, you installed thermostats just to make it better and more tolerable.
That's right. Sorry, I never really stumble, but
we all stumble sometimes. But I get what you're saying. So I have my own thermostat now?
You can adjust the thermostat to how you like it. If you prefer it warmer, you can adjust it warmer. If you prefer it colder, you can adjust it colder.
This way, everybody gets the temperature that they like, and the main temperature in the dorm
remains at room temperature.
Got it. Aizawa, this is perfect. Izuku immediately went to his thermostat and turned the heat up to a toasty 82 degrees. Soon Izuku's room was nice and warm. He sighed happily. Ah, this is better than that space heater. In fact, Tsu and I were worried about it. We thought it might cause a fire or something.
Yes, well, that's one of my other main concerns. It turns out other students also had space heaters, and we were worried about a fire breaking out. We should have thought of this sooner, but we didn't. And I'm glad we're finally fixing the problem.
Same here. I bet Tsu is also happy. I'm mega happy, Ribbit.
I guess this means we won't be hanging out much anymore.
Ribbit, what are you talking about? I'm still gonna come in and hang out, Ribbit. You have the nicest, warmest, fluffiest blankets, Ribbit.
And Tsu immediately made herself comfortable underneath the blankets.
Ah, she sighed happily.
I'll leave you two to it. Be sure to get your homework done and get to bed on time.
Yes, Sensei, they both cried.
Isn't this great, Tsu?
It's wonderful, Ribbit. They should have thought of it sooner, Ribbit. You know, I've often wondered. Oh, Ribbit, why don't teachers use more of their common sense? Ribbit, not sure, Ribbit. Izuku shrugged, and they got started on their homework. And with the thermostat all turned up and it's nice and toasty, they could focus. No longer would Izuku have to spend his whole winter huddled
and shivering violently, trying to get warm. This winter was going to be better. And yep, guys, that is true for me. I cannot tolerate the cold whatsoever. Sorry, my voice has been going in and out. I cannot tolerate the cold whatsoever. In fact, I go in and out quite frequently with the cold. I mean, sorry, I so tongue-tied this morning, I cannot speak. What I mean to say is, the cold hurts. It hurts me physically, and I physically cannot stand it. So if you ask me if it's cold outside, I'm going to tell you yes 98% of the time, because I am cold. It could be 98 degrees and I'm freezing. But that's not to say that I'm immune to the heat. I can still get heat exhaustion, heat stroke, which I have had heat exhaustion a few times these past few summers, but then again, it's been unseasonably hotter and hotter and hotter every summer. Also, I do have a thing where I am prone to overheating at nighttime, which I do keep a bottle of water next to my bed to keep hydrated. I used to keep ice water next to my bed, which I have to start doing that again. But yeah, this is me once again projecting onto Izuku. I cannot tolerate the cold due to medical conditions and just not just in general, because I can't regulate my body temperature. I literally can't. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed some cold intolerant Izuku. See you later.